guys, M13. This is the tail end of the trip. This is probably from my YouTube channel. I already did a Patreon video. My son and I, we've just spent like a full month together. He got, thanks to COVID, he got an extra month of summer vacation. School let out a whole month early. So for the last month, he should have still been in school, but he didn't, but he wasn't. And they're going to have, so his summer vacation would have started a few days ago, and now he's got another 2 months of summer vacation. And while it was great to spend so much time and so many days in a row with my son, the bad news was we couldn't do much. You know, it's COVID, everything's locked down. We couldn't, there's amusement parks are closed, parks are closed, beaches technically are closed. But you don't go to the beach where everyone swims and surfs, because that's going to be like, they're going to have cops watching it. Instead, you go to just like a little beach in the middle of nowhere, and you can still walk around and play in the water, whatever. Just now I was showing my son how to like take this road aggressively, and he's like, those corners were scary. I was looking down and I could see my foot was this far from the pavement. I'm like, yeah, sometimes it touches the pavement. You know, that's why we wear motorcycle boots. And me and my son are both, of course, wearing motorcycle boots right now. So yeah, this is the first. His mom doesn't want us to go anywhere during the pandemic, but we didn't really. We've just been riding all day on roads like this, so it's still pretty darn safe. And we've got our masks on. You can probably hear my voice is muffled. So you guys, life update. I've got the new baby now. His name is OD. So I've got JD and OD. JD, for those of you that don't know, stands for Jade Dragon. Jade is in the crystal, dragon. For my new son, I wanted him to have a matching name. So I was like, and then my last name starts with the letter O, and I'm like, superheroes always have matching first and last names. Peter Parker, Bruce Banner, like they always have the same initials. Like, yeah. Clark Kent. KK, BB. They're always like double initials for superheroes. So I'm like, well, I need a crystal, because Jade is a crystal. I need a crystal, and I need one that starts with the letter O, so it matches my last name. And it came down to obsidian or onyx, which is about as equally as absurd, but yeah, we went with onyx, and we like it. We're used to it. JD, we've always called him JD. We've like never really called him Jade. He's like, if you called him Jade, he wouldn't. I don't know if he would even recognize that as his name. But with the new one, we call him Onyx. I don't know if we'll ever switch to calling him Odie. And his initials, of course, are ODO, which I think is funny. It's like Odie, Odie, Odio. I put a lot of thought into it, and then, now someone's writing in the comments, you put a lot of thought into it, and the best you could come up with was Onyx? Really? You sure you put a lot of thought into it? But yeah. Oh, and the reason my first son's name is Jade, because I wasn't big on crystals back then or anything, is because I grew up with a kid named Jade, and he was a sociopath, I think is the correct term. And I hung around with him all the time, or not all the time. I hung around with him for a while. There was a period of time where I hung out with him a lot, and he was just the coolest guy ever, and I had a lot of respect for him. He like moved out of his parents' house when he was like 14 years old. He was doing all sorts of hustles. He was never homeless. He was doing hustles to make money, and he was renting his own apartment by the time he was like 14, 15. He was paying for it himself. And then he was just out of all the people I knew, he was the most self-dependent and hard-working but smart-working. You know, he made money quickly and easily, like quickly with minimal effort, and he was a badass. I got so many stories about Jade. I'll give you one. We were at an amusement park. I've told this story somewhere before, I'm not sure where. We were at an amusement park, and you can't stop at an intersection, dipshit. We were at an amusement park, and it was one of those traveling amusement parks, like it's like a fair or whatever, a carnival that sets up in different cities on different times. And it was the last day of the carnival, and they'd already started. It was closing time, and we were leaving. And the fun house, it was like this giant fun house, and it had like mirrors in it and this and that, like a maze, fun house maze. You know what a fun house is. So they were taking it apart, and there was like construction workers. They had like a team of about, I think maybe 6 guys that were like taking it apart. And my friend Jade walked in the entrance to the fun house, and there was a construction worker who was like, "Hey, you can't go in there. We're closed." And he's just like, you know, he swore at the guy and went in anyways. And the guy was a construction worker, and he was mad. So he called over a few of his buddies. I don't remember how many. It was like, let's say between 4 and 6. So we see like multiple guys chasing him into this fun house, and there was I don't know, maybe 3 of us, and then we were waiting outside the fun house, and then the fun house has that song that plays on repeat, and I remember Jade walked the exit of the fun house was one of those spinning barrels, like a spinning tube. So I remember Jade walking out the spinning tube with this big smile on his face and blood on both of his fists. And you just knew that somewhere in that fun house was like 3 or 4 broken up construction workers. And he would, one time he was in a bar, and he had like a gang member, like a guy who was like, he was wearing like motorcycle, he had a motorcycle vest on with like markings, and you could tell he was affiliated. And he came up and he started messing with, he was hitting on Jade's girlfriend. And Jade, I'm waiting for Jade to do something, because Jade is insane. But instead of doing something, Jade switched to this very meek, very passive personality. He's like, excuse me, sir, that's my girlfriend. Would you mind leaving us alone, please? And the guy was like, fuck you, whatever. And then Jade was like, oh, sorry, sir, I don't mean to, you know. And then the guy was like, you know, to the girl who was high, he's like, what are you doing with this loser? And she's like, blah, blah, blah. And then she just kind of told the guy to go away on his own, and he left. And then I thought it was odd that Jade just turned all meek all of a sudden. Like, I've never seen him do that before. And then about a week later, he comes to my house, and he's like, remember that guy a week ago? And he goes, well, I asked around. I wanted to see how connected he was before I did anything. Found out his whole motorcycle club consists of him and like 6 other guys, and they sell marijuana, and that's it. So I went to their clubhouse I brought a pair of nunchucks, and he was good with I'm good with nunchucks, and I learned from him. So he goes, I went to their clubhouse, I bought a pair of nunchucks, knocked on the door, beat the crap out of all 6 of them. And I'm like, and then he was telling the story about how one of them tried to get away in a car, and he leaped onto the car, onto the hood, and he like smashed through the windshield. And I'm like, dude, okay, I wasn't there, you're making this up, I can't retell this story in the, you know, ever, and with any believability. And then he smiles, and he pulls out some papers, and he goes, all right, he goes, check this out. And I checked the papers, and it's the witness report. It's going to court, and the guy that he beat up the worst pressed charges against him, which is ridiculous because the guy's in organized crime. So Jade had made a bunch of photocopies of the guy's testimony against him, and he was going to go hand them out to all the other gangs in the neighborhood to let them know that that guy was a rat. So not only did he get beaten up by Jade, he's probably going to get much worse from other clubs. Yeah, so that was yeah, and he wasn't a big guy. He wasn't a big. He was ripped and he was wiry and he had no fear. So that's why I named my son after. Yeah, there you go. M13 Bedtime Story. Okay, later guys.